what's up everyone? My name is Noctigal, and today I'm going to be trying out something a little bit different, as you can probably already tell if you're someone who's watched my channel before. I don't tend to show my face a whole lot. Decided to change that up a little bit. Decided to go with a little bit of a spookier theme today, though, considering the themes and imagery that have been given to us with the Ahsoka show. And I also know that if you're someone who's used to seeing my channel, that this isn't probably something that you're used to, a topic that you're used to me covering. And that's totally understandable. At this point, though, I'm just going to try to cover anything that I'm interested in. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about the fact that I'm pretty sure Abeloth is coming, or at least some form of Abeloth is going to be coming to the Star Wars universe and going to be canonized from Legends. And I think that's awesome. So just to talk about that briefly, obviously if you don't know who Abeloth is, then it can be a little confusing. I imagine that at this point most people actually know who Abeloth is, considering the fact that Abeloth has been a pretty common theory for the creature or entity or being that is calling out to Baylan, and it makes the most sense in a lot of ways, as Abeloth is in a lot of ways the most Lovecraftian creature within the Star Wars universe by far. I mean, she has tentacles and a crazy looking mouth, and at the very least that's the way she's depicted. I haven't personally read too much into that to know all the specific details about her description. Regardless, I think it's pretty clear that after the finale of Ahsoka Season 1 that it is Abeloth calling to Baylan. Or at the very least, I believe that Baylan is going to the place that Abeloth was created. So to expand upon that, who is Abeloth? Well, if you don't know at this point, and you're somehow coming across my channel and seeing this and having me ask you this question, then I'll just answer that really quickly for you, okay? Abeloth was a servant, not necessarily a human. We don't really know. She definitely was mortal, but some sort of servant to the beings or the gods of Mortis from the Clone Wars. And the beings of Mortis, or the gods of Mortis, were essentially, most likely, an ancient, very, very powerful, Force-sensitive race. And in this situation, the Mortis gods, there is the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. The Father represents balance in the Force, the Son represents the dark side of the Force, and the Daughter represents the light side of the Force. And this is actually something that plays into Ahsoka's character, as Ahsoka did in fact inherit essentially the essence of the light side of the Force from the Daughter when the Daughter was stabbed by the Son in the Clone Wars. So with that being said, it's very amazing, honestly, that they are bringing back the Mortis gods, like that they are confirming for sure, like, yeah, no, this wasn't just some random thing we did in the Clone Wars. The Mortis gods matter, right? Like, they don't even just matter to our main Star Wars galaxy, but they matter to other galaxies, it would appear. Regardless, I digress, I'm going on a bit of a tangent there. Anyway, to just really wrap that up in a nice little bow, essentially Abeloth was a servant of the Mortis gods, these immortal beings, and she was mortal herself, and essentially because she was envious of their power, or whether or not she wanted to be part of the family, whatever the reasoning is that people might give you, she drank from the fountain of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge, two essentially, I wouldn't say well springs, but essentially sources of Force energy and power within the universe. And so when she bathed in this pool and drank from this fountain as a mortal being, it transformed her into something that she was never supposed to be. And it transformed her into a monstrosity, and this monstrous entity that essentially was more dark side still than anything else, and was pretty much nigh unstoppable, and in Legends had to be stopped by like Luke and a bunch of other people, and was trapped inside the Maw, and even then Abeloth still always returns eventually. And it could be the case that Abeloth is trapped on Peridia. I know a lot of people have speculated about this already, but it seems to be very likely, considering the statues that Baylan comes across within the last couple minutes of the Ahsoka finale. Baylan is barely even in this finale, but when he is in it for his, 30 seconds of screen time, it's the best 30 seconds of the whole show. Like, if I'm being honest, I think the vast majority of us want to see this show just with Baylan going to seek out whatever he's seeking out. I think that people almost would prefer to just watch that as opposed to so many other things right now, right? Like this Ahsoka show kind of goes all over the place, but I think everyone can agree that Balin is the best character. I mean, let's be honest. He's awesome. His journey is incredible. The fact that he's searching for something that everyone has to theorize about and then it's such a mystery is super awesome. It really brings the fan base together, right? Everyone's talking about it, everyone's theorizing and being like, oh my gosh, what's out there? What's calling to him, right? And I think it's Abeloth, very likely. I didn't notice it the first time I watched the episode, but upon rewatching the episode, yeah, for sure, he is on top of the father statue. It's for sure the father that was in the Clone Wars, the father of Mortis. And right next to him to the right, or I guess it'd be that statue's left, but to the right of where Balin is standing, there's a statue of the sun. So the representation of the dark side of the Force. But then next to the father statue on the left looks to be probably the statue of the daughter, and it's destroyed. And that's very interesting to me because Abeloth was known to have a better relationship with the sun. And I almost wonder if somehow that's connected to the destruction of this statue, or perhaps the destruction of this statue is somehow connected to the daughter being stabbed by the sun and her like essence going into Ahsoka, as well as like that Moirai owl. Which, speaking of that owl, the Moirai owl does show up at the end, which is kind of incredible, showing that, yeah, you know, this is definitely a place where the Mortis gods have been and can be, considering the fact that you get to see the daughter owl there with Ahsoka at the end of this. So it's kind of incredible when you think about that. Moreover, the father statue has an extended arm pointing out into the distance, and upon the first time I watched it, I didn't actually notice anything other than just like, I was like, oh, just that mountain right over there? Okay, that's probably where Abeloth is, right? But then the second time I watched the episode, I looked out into the distance again, and I paused it, and I noticed that there is this mountain off in the distance that essentially looks like it has like an orangish beam of light coming up out of it. And that's very fascinating to me because while I still think it probably is Abeloth out there, now I think I'm actually getting a bit more on board with Eric Voss from New Rockstars, and that it could somehow be the Force Priestesses, because perhaps this is some sort of wellspring of life where midichlorians reside within this particular galaxy. Like, we really have no idea how that works. We have no reason to assume that the wellspring of life within the main Star Wars galaxy is the only wellspring of life. Like, why would that necessarily be the one wellspring of life where all midichlorians within all of the universe exist, right? Like, it could very be possible that there are different wellsprings of life within different galaxies. And it would also make sense to adapt the Legends canon, adapt the Legends story of Abeloth into canon and changing her imprisonment from being within the Maw, the thing that you get to see that giant tentacle monster next to in the Solo, a Star Wars story. Perhaps it would actually be safer within, you know, for canon reasons to have Abeloth be imprisoned within another galaxy, plus then it also makes more sense why we haven't heard of Abeloth again within any of the previous stories, right? Like, it's a really good way that Dave Filoni could actually bring in more Legends material into the canon. And that's something that he's even talked about. There's this really good interview with Dave Filoni where he talks about the fact that if something exists within Legends, he's going to use that. He's not going to just make something up to make something up, right? He's going to adapt it from Legends. And I think that that's a really smart move, because those are things that the fans love and enjoy, and it's something that's been around for so long that people know that stuff, right? And so it's going to be able to connect with a certain number of people within the audience, you know, a certain amount of the fan base that's going to be very diehard about those things, right? And they want to see those things be brought into the canon. And maybe I'll make another video about it, but I think that in a lot of ways, Abeloth could tie into the Night Mothers pretty deeply, like, when you really think about it, because Abeloth was known to become the mother after this occurrence, right? She becomes the mother after this happens. She becomes super, super powerful, right? She essentially becomes on the level of the Mortis gods, if not even more powerful than the Mortis gods. And so we have the father, the one who brings balance, right? We have the son, the dark side. We have the daughter, the light side. And then we have Abeloth, the mother, who is essentially chaos. And so with that being said, the agent of chaos could be the one calling out to Balin, right? And Balin may not even understand that that's what's happening. But it could also be that perhaps she's trapped near where the Fountain of Power and the Pool of Knowledge is. Something like that, right? And so it could also just be that Balin understands that if he goes there, then that's what he'll find. After all, this is a place of dreams, right? A place of legends. And so if we go off of the fact that the legend stories to a degree are true, then this could just be where the canon version of Abeloth is trapped. And I think it's very fascinating, too, considering the fact that within other stories within Star Wars, the Dathomirian Nightsisters, the Dathomirian Nightsisters never make reference to the father. And I find that really interesting. Like, they make reference to the son and the daughter, but they never make reference to the father. And I almost wonder if that has something to do with the fact that perhaps the Nightsisters did not worship the father as much. Perhaps they were more so agents of chaos. But I'm not entirely sure about that, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in some ways, I'm sure, considering the fact that then you would almost expect them to maybe actually worship the father, considering he's the one that trapped away Abeloth, and since it seems like the Nightsisters fled from whatever's on the planet, especially if it is Abeloth. But I do wonder in some way, though, if they did start out perhaps worshipping Abeloth, and that's why their powers are so more distinct than those of the Jedi or the Sith, but are still dark side, right? And it could even, it could even relate to the fact that they are matriarchal. Though I'm really not certain in the end still. I'm almost wondering, too, that if it is somehow like the wellspring of life or the fountain of power and the pool of knowledge, if somehow it's actually going to be that Balin is somehow going to be the canon version of Abeloth. Considering the fact that Abeloth, other than to people who actually did read legends, and even among those people, Abeloth was never necessarily a super popular character within Legends. And so considering that, I almost wonder if perhaps a very popular character like Balin, even though Ray Stevenson is no longer with us, I almost wonder if they could somehow adapt that character into being a different version of Abeloth, like that he goes there and that he seeks to end the cycle, and so that he drinks from the Fountain of Power and that he bathes in the Pool of Knowledge and he becomes an agent of chaos. I know that's kind of a far-fetched theory, but at the very least, I'm glad that it's probably not Palpatine. And again, if it was Palpatine or Emperor Vitiate or almost anything like that, it wouldn't be something that would bring an end to the cycle. And while I think that I've heard some people say that if he ends up seeking out Abeloth, and that is what this is, that it's actually going to be going against what he wants to do, which that could be true, and that would actually fit it very much so in line with like the Lovecraftian nature of Abeloth, that he's being tricked, like if you've seen Shang-Chi, it's kind of like the bringer of darkness or whatever. That I can't honestly remember what the name of that thing was, but the giant tentacle dragon monster at the end of the Shang-Chi movie, very similar thing, where it was kind of a Lovecraftian type monster where it called out to the father of Shang-Chi and made him think that it was someone else. It could be possible that it is Abeloth calling out to him as something else, perhaps calling out to him as the Mortis gods, and so he thinks that he's seeking out the Mortis gods and that he's going to be able to bring an end to the cycle somehow of the Jedi and the Sith using that. And to be fair, I still think that it could serve that purpose, considering the fact that Abeloth could very easily bring an end to the Jedi and the Sith by just completely destroying them. It may not be what people think that Balin would be trying to accomplish, though I do wonder if it wouldn't really matter all that much, because then Abeloth wouldn't have been lying to Balin, right? Being like, hey, I'm someone calling out to you that can bring you what you want. I can deliver you the end of this cycle. I can bring it all down. And so maybe in the end, maybe it will actually be Abeloth. I've got no idea in the end. It'd be kind of cool too if it was also just like a new adaptation take, and like I said, maybe Balin somehow becomes a version of Abeloth. That would be super dope, honestly. Balin's such a dope character, even though we won't get to see Ray Stevenson, reprise his role as the character. I can't wait to see more of the character anyway. And I'm sure he's going to show up in comics and books and a lot of things like that, maybe some animated stuff. But honestly, that's kind of my thought right now, is that I'm pretty positive that it's Abeloth calling out to Balin at the end of that Ahsoka finale, considering the statues of the Mortis gods, the connection that Abeloth has to the Mortis gods, the fact that Dave Filoni has said that he would much prefer to bring something in from Legends that already exists rather than creating something new. That's why he used Thrawn in Rebels, and that's why he used Thrawn in this show, is because why would he come up with something new, a whole new admiral or military leader or whatever, right? He brought in something that people knew, a character that people very much so enjoyed, and one that could actually be threatening. And I think that's very much so what Abeloth could be as well, right? And especially with her being tied into the Mortis gods, it would make a lot of sense with those statues showing up that that's what's being hinted at and that's what's going to show up. And the fact that we have like 20, 30 years until the sequel trilogy, then I'd say that we have a lot of time for them to go up against Abeloth. And at the very least, it could just be that they take care of Abeloth or have to seal Abeloth away again on Peridea in that galaxy, and then they get off of Peridea out of that galaxy. I've got no idea. I'm kind of rambling. It's super late at night. I just really wanted to talk about this because I was really just thinking about the fact that, like, this is such a deep cut. It's incredible to me that they are bringing in Abeloth most likely. Like I said, if it's not Abeloth, maybe some sort of, like, Force Priestess thing or something like that. Honestly, not entirely certain about that, like I said, but clearly there's something off in the distance. There's Mortis God statues. There is some connection here that has to be to something like Abeloth, right? Like, it's got to be something like Abeloth. And so we just kind of have to see what that's going to be, but that's all I really got for you. I think I might end up making more videos talking about, like, maybe the connection between Abeloth and the Nightsisters, but right now, I just really think it's going to be awesome to possibly see Abeloth in live action here soon. But yeah, I've been Noctigal. This has been a kind of rambling video, but hopefully you enjoyed it, you know. I've been getting way more into Star Wars lately, and I've been just trying to delve deep into the lore and figure out anything I can, and hopefully you can go on that journey with me too, and I'm going to probably make a couple more videos covering the Ahsoka show, talking about it a bit more. And so yeah, I'll probably end up covering more stuff about Star Wars and the Ahsoka show here soon. Might even do some stuff on the Rebels and the Clone series show, well, Clone Wars series. There's a whole lot of stuff that I've been getting really into. I've been really wanting to cover a lot more Star Wars stuff. I mean, it's just honestly, it's an amazing universe, and it's something that I was never into when I was younger. And the fact that I'm getting into it when I'm a bit older now, it's a bit of a treat. And hopefully you'll come along for the ride. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.